Welcome to NCRT, NEET with Ease or NEET Made Easy. As per promise, we are over here with a new chapter 17, Breathing and Exchange of Gases. As you have read earlier, oxygen is utilized by the organisms to indirectly break down simple molecules like glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, etc. to derive energy to perform various activities. Carbon dioxide, CO2, which is harmful, is also released during the above catabolic reactions. It is therefore evident that oxygen has to be continuously provided to the cells and carbon dioxide produced by the cells have to be released out. This process of exchange of oxygen from the atmosphere with carbon dioxide produced by the cells is called breathing, commonly known as respiration. Place your hands on your chest. You can feel the chest moving up and down. You know that it is due to breathing. How do we breathe? The respiratory organs and the mechanism of breathing are described in the following sections of this chapter. Respiratory organs. Mechanism of breathing vary among different groups of animals depending mainly on their habitats and level of organization. Lower invertebrates like sponges, coelentrates, flatworms, etc. exchange oxygen with carbon dioxide by simple diffusion over their entire body surface. Earthworms use their moist cuticle and insects have a network of tubes, tracheal tubes to transport atmospheric air within the body. Special vascularized structures called gills, branchial respiration, are used by the most of the aquatic arthropods and mollusks, whereas vascularized bags called lungs, pulmonary respiration are used by the terrestrial forms of the exchange of gases. Among vertebrates, fishes uses gills, whereas amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals respire through lungs. Amphibians like frogs can respire through their moist skin, which is even called as cutaneous respiration. 17.1.1 Human Respiratory System. We have a pair of external nostrils opening out above the upper lips. It leads to a nasal chamber through the nasal passage. The nasal chamber opens into the pharynx, a portion which is common passage for food and air. The pharynx opens to the larynx region into trachea. Larynx is a cartilaginous box which helps in sound production and hence called the sound box. During swallowing, glottis can be covered by a thin elastic cartilaginous flap called epiglottis to prevent the entry of food into the larynx. Trachea is a straight tube extending up to the mid-thoracic cavity which divides at the level of fifth thoracic vertebrae into the right and left primary bronchi. Each bronchi undergoes repeated divisions to form the secondary and tertiary bronchi, and which further undergoes repeated divisions to form secondary and tertiary bronchi, and bronchioles too, ending up in very thin terminal bronchioles. The tracheae, primary, secondary, and tertiary bronchi, and initial bronchioles are supported by incomplete cartilaginous rings. Each terminal bronchiole gives rise to a number of very thin, irregular, walled, and vascularized bag-like structures called alveoli. The branching network of bronchi, bronchioles, and alveoli comprises the lungs. Figure 17.1. We have two lungs which are covered by a double-layered pleura with pleural fluid between them. It reduces the friction on the lung surface. The outer pleural membrane is in close contact with the thoracic lining, whereas the inner pleural membrane is in contact with the lung surface. Guys, let's go and look to the diagram. Okay, so we can see epiglottis is over there. Then after epiglottis we are having larynx. After larynx there is trachea, and after trachea in the lungs, on the outer surface of the lungs, we are having pleural membrane. Then we are having small air sacs known as alveoli. Then we are having pleural fluid in between two pleural membranes. We are having bronchiole which is just connecting, or which is just forming part of alveoli. Now we are having diaphragm, heart. You can easily learn it. There is no need to learn for the heart. Bronchus we are having over here. Our cut end of the rib is, we can see those are the ribs that are showing you the cut part. Okay, now we are and lungs is as it is all clear. Diagrammatic view of human respiratory system, sectional view. Moving back to our reading. The parts starting with the external nostrils up to the terminal bronchioles constitute the conducting part, whereas the alveoli and their ducts form the respiratory or exchange part of the respiratory system. The conducting part transports the atmospheric air to alveoli, clears it from foreign particles, humidifies, and also brings the air to the body temperature. Exchange part is the site of actual diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide between blood and atmospheric air. The lungs are situated in the thoracic chamber, which is anatomically an airtight chamber. The thoracic chamber is formed dorsally by the vertebral column and ventrally by the sternum, laterally by the ribs, and on the lower side by the dome-shaped diaphragm. The anatomical setup of lungs and thorax is such that any change in the volume of the thoracic cavity will be reflected in the lung or pulmonary cavity. Such an arrangement is essential for breathing, as we cannot directly alter the pulmonary volume. Respiration involves the following steps: breathing or pulmonary ventilation, by which atmospheric air is drawn in and carbon dioxide rich alveolar air is released out; diffusion of gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide across alveolar membrane; third point, transport of gases by the blood; fourth point, diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide between blood and tissues; fifth point, utilization of oxygen by the cells for catabolic reactions and resultant release of carbon dioxide, which is even said to be the cellular respiration, as dealt in the chapter 14. 17.2 Mechanism of breathing. Breathing involves two stages: inspiration, during which atmospheric air is drawn in, and expiration, by which the alveolar air is released out. The movement of air into and out of the lungs is carried out by creating a pressure gradient between the lungs and the atmosphere. Inspiration can occur if the pressure within the lungs or intrapulmonary pressure is less than the atmospheric pressure. That is, there is a negative pressure in the lungs with respect to the atmospheric pressure. Similarly, expiration takes place when the intrapulmonary pressure is higher than the atmospheric pressure. The diaphragm and a specialized set of muscles known to be as external and internal intercostal muscles between the ribs help in generation of such gradients. Inspiration is initiated by the contraction of diaphragm, which increases the volume of thoracic chamber in the anterior-posterior axis. The contraction of external intercostal muscles lift up the ribs and the sternum, causing an increase in the volume of the thoracic chamber in the dorsoventral axis. The overall increase in the thoracic volume causes a similar increase in pulmonary volume. An increase in the pulmonary volume decreases the intrapulmonary pressure to less than the atmospheric pressure, which forces the air from outside to move into the lungs. That is inspiration, which we can see, or which we can refer from the figure 17.2 to the part A. Relaxation of the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles returns the diaphragm and sternum to their normal position and reduce the thoracic volume and thereby the pulmonary volume. This leads to an increase in intrapulmonary pressure to slightly above the atmospheric pressure, causing the expulsion of air from the lungs. That is expiration. 17.2 का B part. We have the ability to increase the strength of the inspiration and expiration with the help of the additional muscles in the abdomen. On an average, a healthy human breathes 12 to 16 times per minute. The volume of air involved in breathing movements can be estimated by using a spirometer, which helps in clinical assessment of primary functions. 17.2.1. Actually, let's first refer to the diagrams given over there. If you can see in the A part what's happening, the ribs and sternums are raised. When they are going to be raised, let us just do a practical. So when we are forcing air inside, then only our lungs are going to be raised, or ribs are going to be raised. So A part is for inspiration and B part is for expiration or air expelled from lungs. Okay, moving on to 17.2.1, respiratory volumes and capacities. This is a very important part, as the questions in NEET are like around these volumes only. So please pay your attention. Tidal volume or TV, volume of air inspired or expired during a normal respiration. It is approx 500 milliliter. That is, a healthy man can inspire or expire approximately 6,000 to 8,000 milliliter of air per minute. Now we are moving on to inspiratory reserve volume or IRV. Additional volume of air a person can inspire by a forcible inspiration. This averages 2500 milliliter to 3000 milliliter. Moving on, expiratory reserve volume. As the name suggests, additional volume of air a person can expire by a forceful expiration. This averages 1000 milliliter to 1100 milliliter. Moving on, we are having residual volume. As the name suggests, volume of air remaining in the lungs even after a forcible expiration. This averages 1100 milliliter to 1200 milliliter. By adding up a few respiratory volumes described above, one can derive various pulmonary capacities which can be used in clinical diagnosis. Inspiratory capacity or IC. Total volume of the air a person can inspire after a normal expiration. This includes tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume (TV) plus IRV. Expiratory capacity or EC. Total volume of air a person can expire after a normal inspiration. I'm repeating this once again. Expiratory capacity EC, total volume of air a person can expire after a normal inspiration. This includes tidal volume and expiratory reserve volume. The initials are TV plus ERV. Functional residual capacity or FRC, volume of air that will remain in the lungs even after a normal expiration. This includes ERV plus RV. Vital capacity VC, the maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after a forced expiration. This includes ERV, TV and IRV, or the maximum value of air a person can breathe out after a forced inspiration. Total lung capacity or TLC, total volume of air accommodated in the lungs at the end of a forced inspiration. This includes RV, ERV, TV and IRV, or vital capacity plus residual volume. Moving on to 17.3, exchange of gases. Alveoli are the primary sites of exchange of gases. Exchange of gases also occur between blood and tissues. Oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged in these sites by simple diffusion, mainly based on pressure or concentration gradient. Solubility of the gases as well as the thickness of the membranes involved in diffusion are also important factors that can affect the rate of diffusion. Pressure contributed by an individual gas is in a mixture of gases is called partial pressure and is represented small p to the power O का square, या फिर partial pressure O2 for oxygen and partial pressure CO2 for carbon dioxide. Partial pressures of these two gases in the atmospheric air and the two sites of diffusion are given in the table 17.1. We'll be focusing our attention towards that a little later. And in a figure 17.2, same over here too. The data given in the table clearly indicates a concentration gradient for oxygen from alveoli to blood and from blood to tissues. Similarly, a gradient is a pressure for carbon dioxide in the opposite direction, that is from tissues to blood and blood to alveoli. So over here the sentence ends. Let's get back to the diagram. Moving on, we are having table 17.1 which shows partial pressure in millimeter Hg. Hg is what? Hg is in millimeter per mercury, or of oxygen and carbon dioxide are different parts involved in diffusion in comparison to those in atmosphere. Now we are having respiratory gas. Oxygen, the atmospheric air is 159. In alveoli it would be 104. In blood, in deoxygenated blood it would be 40. Oxygenated blood it would be 95. And in tissues it would be 40. In carbon dioxide, respiratory gas, what we are taking in is atmospheric air would be having 0.3% of carbon dioxide. Alveoli would be having 40% of carbon dioxide. Blood deoxygenated is going to have 45% of carbon dioxide, and blood oxygenated is going to have 40% of of carbon dioxide, whereas in tissues, carbon dioxide would be of 45%. Moving on to 17.b, we can see inspired air ऊपर से आ रही है और expired air निकल रही है दूसरी साइड से. Inspired air जब आती है तो alveolar air में बेटा partial pressure of oxygen 104 millimeter Hg होता है. Partial pressure of carbon dioxide 40 millimeter Hg होता है. And carbon dioxide निकल रही है, ऑक्सीजन जा रही है. जहाँ से ऑक्सीजन जा रही है वो रेड कलर का ब्लड है, क्योंकि वहाँ पे डीऑक्सीनेशन नहीं, ऑक्सीजनेशन हो रहा है. तो पल्मोनरी वेन से मेरा ऑक्सीजन मिक्स हो रही है, बॉडी की तरफ जा रही है, बॉडी मेरे CO2 और ऑक्सीजन को ट्रांसफ़र कर रही है. ये डायग्राम थोड़ा सा इंपॉर्टेंट है गाइस, लेकिन बहुत मेरे ख्याल से लाइक 4 to 5 पेपर्स में पूछा गया है, तो मेक श्योर आप इन सब चीज़ों को अच्छे से पढ़ रहे हों. सो हम लोग ने एल्वियोलाई तक फिनिश कर लिया था. एज द solubility ऑफ CO2 is 20 to 25 times higher than that of oxygen, the amount of carbon dioxide that can diffuse through the diffusion membrane per unit difference in partial pressure is much higher compared to that of oxygen. The diffusion membrane is made up of three major layers, figure 17.4, namely the thin squamous epithelium of alveoli, the endothelium of alveolar capillaries, and the basement substance or composed of a thin basement membrane supporting the squamous epithelium and the basement membrane surrounding the single layer endothelial cells of capillaries in between them. Then however its total thickness is much less than a millimeter. Therefore all the factors in a body are favorable for diffusion of oxygen from alveoli to tissues and that of carbon dioxide from tissues to alveoli. Guys, the composition of different things and what layers are made, what layers are composing what type of organ is very much important. Like alveoli is made up of the endothelium of alveolar capillaries. From on tomorrow I would be using underlined part of NCERT, so that would be very good for you. Achha, moving on, we are having this diagram, you people can easily see it, and I don't think so I have to describe that diagram. Moving on, we are in 17.4, transport of gases. Blood is the medium of transport for oxygen and carbon dioxide. About 97% of oxygen is transported by RBC in the blood. RBC is in the blood. The remaining 3% of oxygen is carried in a dissolved state through the plasma. Nearly 20 to 25% of the carbon dioxide is transported by RBCs, whereas 70% of it is carried as bicarbonate. About 7% of carbon dioxide is carried in a dissolved state through plasma. Moving on to transport of oxygen, hemoglobin is a red colored iron containing pigment present in the RBCs. Oxygen can bind with hemoglobin in a reversible manner to form oxyhemoglobin. Each hemoglobin molecule can carry a maximum of 4 molecules of oxygen. Binding of oxygen with hemoglobin is primarily related to partial pressure of oxygen, partial pressure of carbon dioxide, hydrogen ion concentration and temperature are the other factors which can interfere with this binding. A sigmoid curve is obtained when percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen is plotted against the partial pressure of oxygen. This curve is called the oxygen dissociation curve and is highly useful in studying the effects of factors like partial pressure of carbon dioxide, hydrogen ion concentration, etc. on binding of oxygen with hemoglobin in the alveoli, where there is high partial pressure of oxygen, low partial pressure of carbon dioxide, lesser hydrogen ion. Lesser hydronium ion concentration and lower temperature, the factors are all favorable for the formation of oxyhemoglobin. Whereas in the tissues where low partial pressure of oxygen, high partial pressure, high hydronium concentration and high temperature exist, The conditions are favorable for dissociation of oxygen from the oxyhemoglobin. This clearly indicates that oxygen gets bound to hemoglobin at the lung surface and gets dissociated at the tissues. Every 100 ml of oxygenated blood at the tissues, blood can deliver around 5 ml of oxygen to the tissues under normal physiological conditions. The transport of carbon dioxide is carried by hemoglobin as carbaminohemoglobin, about 20 to 25%. This binding is related to the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Partial pressure of oxygen is a major factor which could affect this binding. When partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high and partial pressure of oxygen is low, as in the tissues, more binding of carbon dioxide occurs, whereas when the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low and partial pressure of oxygen is high in the alveoli, dissociation of carbon dioxide from carbaminohemoglobin takes place. That is, carbon dioxide which is bound to hemoglobin from the tissues is delivered at the alveoli. RBCs contain a very high concentration of the enzyme carbonic anhydrase, and minute quantities of the same is present in the plasma too. This enzyme facilitates the following reaction in both directions: carbon dioxide plus water on the addition of carbonic anhydrase gives H2CO3, and on the addition of carbonic anhydrase, which gives CO3 to the power negative plus hydronium ions, and vice versa. At the tissue side, where partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high due to catabolism, CO2 diffuses in blood, RBCs in plasma, and forms HCO3 minus and H positive. At the alveolar side, where partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low, the reaction proceeds in the opposite direction, leading to the formation of carbon dioxide and water. Thus, carbon dioxide trapped as bicarbonate at the tissue level and transported to the alveoli is released out as carbon dioxide. Every 100 ml of deoxygenated blood delivers approximately 4 milliliter of carbon dioxide to the alveoli. 17.5 Regulation of respiration. Human beings have a significant ability to maintain and moderate the respiratory rhythm to suit the demands of the body tissues. This is done by the neural system. A specialized center present in the medulla region of the brain called respiratory rhythm center is primarily responsible for this regulation. Another center present in the pons region of the brain called pneumatic center can moderate the functions of the respiratory rhythm center. Neural signal from this center can reduce the duration of inspiration and thereby after the respiratory rate. A chemosensitive area is situated adjacent to the rhythm center, which is highly sensitive to carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions. Increase in these substances can activate this center, which in turn can signal the rhythm center to make necessary adjustments in the respiratory processes by which these substances can be eliminated. Receptors associated with aortic arc and carotid artery also can recognize changes in carbon dioxide and hydrogen ion concentration and send necessary signals to the rhythm center for remedial actions. The role of oxygen in the regulation of respiratory rhythm is quite insignificant. Disorders of the respiratory system. First is asthma, is a difficulty in breathing causing wheezing due to inflammation of bronchi and bronchioles. Emphysema is a chronic disorders in which alveolar walls are damaged, due to which respiratory surface is decreased. One of the major causes of this is cigarette smoking. Occupational respiratory disorders in certain industries, especially those involving grinding or stone breaking, so much dust is produced that the defense mechanism of the body cannot fully cope with the situation. Long exposure can give rise to inflammation, leading to fibrosis, proliferation of fibrous tissues, and thus causing serious lung damage. Workers in such industries should wear protective masks. Summary: cells utilize oxygen for metabolism and produce energy along with substances like carbon dioxide, which is harmful. Animals have evolved different mechanisms for the transport of oxygen to the cells. The first step in respiration is breathing, by which atmospheric air is taken in inspiration and the alveolar air is released out. Expiration: exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between deoxygenated blood and alveoli. Transport of these gases throughout the body by blood. Exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the oxygenated blood and tissues, and utilization of oxygen by the cells. Cellular respiration are the other steps involved. Inspiration and expiration are carried out by the creating pressure gradients between the atmosphere and the alveoli with the help of specialized muscles intercostals and diaphragm. Volumes of air involved in these activities can be estimated with the help of spirometer and are of clinical significance. Exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide at the alveoli and tissues occur by diffusion. Rate of diffusion is dependent on the partial pressure gradients of oxygen, partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide, or partial pressure of carbon dioxide, air solubility, as well as the thickness of the diffusion surface. These factors in a body facilitate diffusion of oxygen from the alveoli to the deoxygenated blood as well as from the oxygenated blood to the tissues. The factors are favorable for the diffusion of carbon dioxide in the opposite direction, that is from the tissues to alveoli. Oxygen is transported mainly as oxyhemoglobin in the alveoli, where partial pressure of oxygen is higher. Oxygen gets bound to hemoglobin, which is easily dissociated at the tissues where partial pressure of oxygen is low and partial pressure of carbon dioxide and hydrogen ion concentration are high. Nearly 70% of the carbon dioxide is transported as bicarbonate SCO3- with the help of the enzyme carbonic anhydrase. 20 to 25% of the carbon dioxide is carried by hemoglobin as carbaminohemoglobin. In the tissues where partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high, it gets bound to blood, whereas in the alveoli where partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low and partial pressure of oxygen is high, it gets removed from the blood. Respiratory rhythm is maintained by the respiratory center in the medullary region of the brain, a pneumotaxic center in the pons region of the brain, and chemosensitive area in the medulla can alter respiratory mechanism. Okay guys, so this was our ending. I hope you are very much familiar with the chapter. Please go through the video. If you found anything that you want to change, or you want to you are getting a lot of problem against that, please inform me in the description below, and I'll be working on that particular thing. From on tomorrow I am going to use underlined part of NCERT, and I'll be using underlined part of Dr. Aman Tilak's NCERT, so that would be very much helpful for me and you both. Okay, stay tuned. Please like and subscribe. Do tell me what things you didn't like so that I could work on that. Thank you and goodbye.